Awesome. I'm seeing folks come into the waiting room. So Tyler, I think we can go ahead and get started. The slide that you're looking at here is just a recap of this 2 series that are in the session. So thanks to everybody who was able to come last time. And also thanks for folks who are joining us here today to learn more about what SmartPlan can do for you, particularly at this time of the year. We'll dive real quick into our agenda, which is super simple. Go ahead, Tyler. Thank you. So I think we see a lot of folks who were here last time. So maybe we'll just do a super quick overview of what SmartPlan is. For folks who weren't able to attend last time, we did have a really nice in-depth walkthrough of that. So you can take a look at the recording from last week as well if you wanted to get more into the nitty-gritty of how to get started with SmartPlan if you don't know about its functionality yet. So after a really quick overview, then we will dive into 5 specific scenarios. They were previewed on the previous slide, but really we're focusing this week on kind of more advanced use cases with SmartPlan. So not just for your basic carving, but for some more sophisticated scenarios. For the format, we're going to do interaction back and forth between slides and demo. I'll keep an eye on the Q&A box throughout the session. So if you have questions that come to mind, you can feel free to drop those in the Q&A box at any point in time. And I'll surface those to Tyler to make sure we get those addressed. And then we also have some time at the end as well. I will get the recording slides and resources out to folks who signed up tomorrow before the end of the day. That is pretty much it from me.
Thank you, Ashley. Yeah, just to rehash this again, if you're joining this for the first time, we had a session last week, which would be part 1 that we go into SmartPlan and all of its components into detail. I probably spend, 15 minutes going through everything. So that is a very good high-level overview of how this is. That said, we will talk a little bit about SmartPlan. So before we do that, let's talk about some of these advanced level strategies and automation that exist as it relates to the SmartPlan and some of the policies that we have available to enable these scenarios. So today we're going to talk a little bit about minimizing disruption during recarves and new fiscal years. A little bit of this is a play off of the balance scenario that we talked off last week, and just a little bit more detail there. We're going to execute regular book refreshes using specific criteria. So what does that mean? Having a regular cadence of pulling accounts out of territories and putting net new ones in. That cadence can be anything you choose, but the point of that would be to take accounts that maybe not were high propensity to start the year, and now 6 months down the road they have intent to purchase, and we want to make sure that they get into a territory and a rep's working. So we'll talk about that flow. Create and automate a book refresh cadence. So playing off of the earlier one, how do you actually automate that end to end? Not all customers want to automate it. You don't have to, but if you do and you just never want to look at it again, then we can do that. And then we'll go into adding new territories through peel and grow or art over carving strategies. Sometimes, no matter how good your capacity planning is, and you're going to need 8 territories, you're going to hire 2 in this specific region, but it's going gangbusters and we really need to add an additional 9th head count. What do we do there? How can we use SmartPlan to do that? And then finally, talk a little bit about some of the automated processes that exist in the background to really enhance the efficiency of SmartPlan. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, before we go into our first scenario, let's talk some SmartPlan. So I'll start with the balance scenario. This will be just like a really rehash of last week, just a primer for everyone. So the balance is taking a step back. SmartPlan really came from a point where there was this shift away from geographic based territories. Not to say that we're going to do away with our regions, do away with central, east, west in the US, but maybe not plan down to the postal code level where you get this postal code and you get this postal code. And instead, what I want to do is take a set of accounts and spread them evenly across a specific number of territories based on KPIs or metrics that I care about. So in this case, we've built a territory that said, go build me 5 territories. And I want you to first minimize the disruption. So that's keeping certain accounts aligned with existing reps. I want you to then balance the number of accounts that are tier A accounts evenly across those 5 territories. So if there were 5 accounts that were tier A, we would put 1 in each of those territories. And so you would have a set of criteria that you would kind of build out and structure in terms of what you deem as a balanced set of territories. And SmartPlan would go through and run simulations and kind of really figure out, well, what is the best case for this, and then deliver that to you in a matter of minutes. So that was the balance scenario. Let's go talk about our next scenario, which is minimize disruption during recarves and new fiscal years. So the first thing, and we kind of had already looked at this, right, which in this balance scenario is this minimized disruption. And we'll come down into our recarve. And really, this is going to look very similar in the sense that we have the minimized disruption turned on. Now, the recommendation here, because what's interesting is maybe I've assigned out all of my accounts to the territories. And if I have minimized disruption turned on where I'm not actually setting any filter criteria, then there's not going to be any movements across accounts or reshuffling of things. And really what we want to do is come in here and set a specific filter criteria. This can be any kind of data that you have available on the account. For us today, we're actually going to say that the type is customer. So we're going to keep all of our customers aligned. Another common example might be, is there open opportunities associated with the account? Is there activity in the last 90 days associated with the account? And those are things that we would want to do here to like scope that down into what we want to keep aligned. I've also seen customers have reps pick the accounts that they want to keep via like a checkbox. And that would then be something you would filter in on to say, only keep these accounts aligned. And anything that is not with that checkbox equal to true, then we're just going to put it anywhere based on the set of criteria that exists down here. So this is a typical recarve refresh cadence that can exist. We do run, when we think about this push here, this is all in a current state. So if I actually were to save this and type in confirm, the rules will be saved, but we're not actually going to rerun the rules. So I'll come in, and now I'm going to rerun the rules on everything in here. And this is then going to propose any of those changes. And we're going to see a bunch of yellow dots that exist next to the territories. What this means is that I don't have to actually think about what I'm going to do and do it today. I can walk away from these proposed changes. I can spend the time working with sales leadership on reviewing the proposed changes before I actually commit them. That commit is really what tells Fullcast to go push this stuff to Salesforce. And we're going to let that run. It might take about 30 seconds or so for it to come through. And we'll just kind of glance back at our deck here. So our next scenario, we're going to plug forward while that's running, and we'll come back to it. But the execute regular book refreshes using specific criteria. So we're going to start by using the filter criteria to tell us which accounts to remove. And then we will use the unassigned node as a holding pin. All right. I'm just going to back out of that so that it displays a little bit better. There we go. So book refreshes. So I took that similar structure as before with that balance scenario. We have our minimized disruption and the set of criteria. But what I want to do now is actually add in an additional criteria to say that the status does not equal disqualified. We would repeat this all the way down for all of our criteria. So I would come in here again, and then we would say additional condition, and our status does not equal disqualified, and then save. And so once I'm done with that, what ends up happening is that anytime we rerun the rules on this book refresh process here, we will remove accounts that have a status disqualified and dump them in an unassigned bucket. And the way that this works is that we might have a max number of accounts per territory. So I might say that I only want 50 accounts in each book, and that would then dump the rest or whatever was remaining into this unassigned node, and then give us a set of 50 accounts for each of those territories. Now, as reps work things on a cadence, maybe you think about this refresh cadence or this book refresh cadence to be every quarter, for example. It can be anything you want, but let's say it's every quarter. So on the quarter, you run the rules on the SmartPlan. That would then look at the status of all those accounts. If it is equal to disqualified, we would put it in unassigned. Now, anything that we do take out, that's going to reduce the territory or the book of business below 50, which means we can now top up. That top up will come from that unassigned node. So if we have a kind of a parking of accounts that sit in unassigned, there might be some intent that's changed, some propensity to buy that's changed, and now we want to put those into a territory. And so SmartPlan would leverage the existing rule set to say, well, I know that book one here has 45 accounts, so I need to make sure I top it up with accounts that kind of meet this criteria that we've specified below. And this will allow you to refresh things on a quarterly basis, every 6 months, weekly, every month, whatever it is that you're kind of looking to do. All right. Coming back, I think maybe there was no accounts in this one, but there's no yellow dots, and that's fine. If there were yellow dots, then there would be a proposed change for us to review. We won't go into that too much more for that. All right. So create and automate a book, refresh cadence. So we've talked about refreshing the book itself, right? So I've saved this. Let's say I've filtered out all the disqualifieds. I come up to the top here and hit save and exit. We confirm. Now, I might want to run this on a regular basis without my actual manual effort of coming in, selecting book refreshes, selecting rerun rules. And the way you're going to do that is actually turning on auto rerun rules for Fullcast to detect changes to your data and rerun the rules on the account. So the way that we would do that is come into plans. We have many different plans that are available, right? And today we're spending time in our SmartPlan office hours. And so I'd come in here to edit the plan. There's some filtering of import records, but what we're caring about is this section at the bottom here. And I'm going to enable the rerun rules. So what this means is on import, we're going to rerun the rules on any accounts that meet the following criteria that we specify. So I will go ahead and say that any account where the type, oops, sorry, I was actually status, does not equal or equals disqualified. And we might also say that we want the segment name to equal unassigned. And I'm going to actually change this to an or, right? So we have any accounts that have a status that is equal to disqualified, or the account is located in an unassigned node. So on import, I want you to rerun the rules on those accounts, see where they put it, and then we're going to go ahead and put them in a proposed state. We could choose to automate this fully end to end and never get involved. And by doing that, we would turn this to a committed state. So the proposed state does require some sort of review process, because you're going to have to come in to Fullcast and look at the changes, commit them to actually push them back into Salesforce, whereas this committed state would just skip that proposed interim stage and go straight to pushing this stuff back into Salesforce. So this would automate this anytime your import job runs. If it's running nightly, that would run it every night. If it's running once a week, then we would do this on that cadence as well. And so that's kind of how this process works. All right, we're going to leave that off for now, and we will go back into our SmartPlan. Our next piece here is adding new territories through peel and grow or art over carving strategies. So in this case, we'll come down to peel and grow. I've got 5 territories that exist. Let's say I need to add an additional headcount in this territory that I haven't already planned for. So I'd actually come into the SmartPlan, select edit. Maybe these rules are fine. Maybe I scope down the minimize disruption a little bit. But what I can do is increment this to 6. And then scroll here and hit save and exit. And confirm. And so now this will create a 6th territory for us. It won't automatically rerun the rules, and we'll have to do that to kind of balance and top up things. Now, before I do that, I might want to, if we know who that person is, we can certainly assign that coverage out now. Or if we know we're going to hire for that at some point in the future, we can create a TBX placeholder for the account executive, add the productivity profile or the ramp schedule in. When do we plan on hiring that person? Let's say that's October 1st. And then we'll next. Fullcast wants you to clone it after a real person because our TBHs exist as real people in Fullcast. You can assign quota to them. You can assign them to a territory, much like we're doing here. We'll say that you're going to be an AE. And we can put them in a team if we're managing quota and things like that in the teams module. So next, here's our ramp schedule that it's showing us. And then we'll hit save. And so now I've signed a future dated TBH that exists. When I do hire for this role, I can actually come in here to confirm the new hire, select in, that's going to be Duffy, and the effective date will be 10/3, let's say. It's already pre-filled all of these things in here. We can confirm any of this, and then we'll set this here to new priors. Go back one here, maybe pick a different user. So let's try Janelle. All right, so something's going on with the assignment type and user combination. Probably the user is deactivated or deleted in the backend, which is what it's not letting me save that. But when you do save that, it would confirm the new hire, and then we would have the new person in the role, which would then, when they start on October 3rd, Fullcast would then export all of the accounts and them to the account team for all the accounts in this territory. So if I did want to actually add accounts to this territory, I could rerun the rules a bit here. That would then put net new accounts into the peel grow 6, because if I come into it today, there's not going to be anything here. And then there'll be accounts in, like, let's say peel and grow 5, and so on and so forth. So this will top that stuff up for me and kind of balance those things out. Alrighty, next up. Any questions, by the way? I don't see anything come through.
No questions yet.
Okay. All right, so implement automated processes to enhance efficiency. So let's talk about some of the things that we can actually leverage to be on top of the what we have here with the existing SmartPlan. So here's the automation that we've built. These are the classic SmartPlan rules that we've used. Nothing net new here. And we kind of have the same set of rules that exist. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to go into our policy section, and I'll just duplicate this tab. We'll go into plans. We're going to go into the policy, manage policies by territory. And we're going to see a couple of policies that we've created. So SmartPlan is a sort of round robin, right? We don't actually have you own this Midwest territory or you own the Northwest territory. So in the routing structure, we do want to be able to essentially round robin among those territories. And if I select the automation here, we can see that we've built out account routing. So what's unique about the routing policy and being able to automate this in context of the SmartPlan that I've built is that I've turned on the round robin settings, and instead of actually putting any people into the round robin, what I've done is actually put the territories. So the territories exist in the round robin, and Fullcast knows to attempt to round robin to each of the territories as accounts get routed. At the bottom here, we've selected to go find that AE that's associated with any of the territories. So in the case that I go back to our territory structure and look at automation 1 and go to the coverage, the first person that's going to get a territory, we'll reset that. And maybe we'll add somebody in. First person that would get that territory would be Aggie. And so Aggie is the account executive on automation 1. Another account comes in, then we would look for an assignment here. If there was no assignment or AE assigned here, then we would skip and we would continue on down the line until we find the next active account executive. Of course, if they go inactive in Salesforce, then we're not going to route it to them. You can't actually do that in Salesforce, but there has to be an active assignment for us to round robin the account to the person in the role. And what this allows us to do is never have to come into this policy to manage the round robin. And all we're doing is managing the coverage in the go-to-market plan. So as people get promoted, they leave the business, or we hire, like we had that TBH scenario, then all of its routing wise is already up to date. Okay, back to policies next. So another option that we have is a terminate employee option. So this allows us to fully automate when a person gets terminated or leaves the business. We can detect that event that happens. Typically today, that is an inactive status on your user in Salesforce. We do also have an integration to HRIS systems to look at termination events through that as well. So once we do detect the termination event, we can then take actions on that. First, dealing with the assignment, so removing them, creating temporary assignments. We can also create permanent assignments if we need to, and putting any specific person in place. In this case, I can choose a role of an AE or a specific person that we put in, or the manager that we create that assignment for. And then finally, if there are any quota or targets that are assigned, we can reassign the quota to the TBR, the temporary user, or just delete it out for anybody that's been or anybody that's left the business. So what that ends up happening is that now as we think about routing, as soon as that person leaves, we can replace that with a new account executive or put in temporary coverage, and routing continues to be maintained and up to date. There is a new hire policy as well. That one's not yet in the UI, but we can detect when somebody is created in Salesforce or in your HRIS system, connect them with the TBH user, and put them in the territory before they actually start. So on their start date, they have accounts in their name and they're ready to go. This final piece is the holdouts. And so as we think about that peel and grow strategy that we were talking about here, and we're moving accounts around, we can see those yellow dots for a proposed change now. As we've moved accounts around, there might be accounts that actually do have open opportunities that do exist. And in the sense that there are open opportunities that exist against account, and we're transferring that to a new person or moving them around, then we can actually keep opportunities with the existing rep for a set period of time. So what we've done, and we haven't filtered this down on any of the open opportunities, and I've just said, give the existing rep 90 days to close or 60 days to close the open opportunity. And if at the end of that time, that opportunity is still open, we can then assign that to the new account owner at that time. And so here are some of the policies that we can use to just automate some of the SmartPlan stuff that we've built in the go-to-market territory structure. I do want to go back now that we have those dots here in the peel and grow. I'll leave that tab open and we'll go into here. And now what I can do is switch this accounts to a difference view to view my proposed changes. So if I go into, let's say, peel and grow 1, we can see that we're proposing to remove about 180 accounts. There's also a bunch of additional ads that exist. I can review these, approve them, or undo them if I don't like the proposed change. Now, if we go into that peel and grow 6, which is the one that we did build, here's the outcome in terms of the number of accounts, the number of tier A accounts, etc. As it relates to that territory. We're good to go, and we have an additional book for whenever we hire that new person. Okay, I think that covers all the advanced strategies today. I think if there's any other questions, we'll hang on for a couple more minutes, or feel free to ask. Otherwise, we ran through it pretty quick today.
Yes, there's 2 questions.
Oh,
my
wonderful.
internet just dropped out. I disappeared. You didn't even know it. So I did a good job with popping back on. But
I did see myself pop up and I was like,
Okay, sorry about that. So a couple of questions here, and of course, keep them coming, folks. We're happy to get these answered for folks. But the first one is, what's the difference between the automation strategy and rerunning rules? So I guess that refers to that routing based 1 and 9, and then the general settings for rerun rules.
Wait, let me look at that. Was it actually between the automation strategy and rerunning the rules? The automation strategy leverages rerunning the rules. So they're essentially, or unless you're talking about the actual one that we just were discussing down here with the account routing.
I think that's the one that we're talking about, like doing the routing approach versus like rerunning the rules. Is there any interaction between those? And maybe that's the question. If it's not, feel free to elaborate on your question.
That's actually a great question. So the difference is that the routing structure will be round robin. We are not going to look at the SmartPlan rules that you built. So if you said go balance by tier A, go balance the number of customers, balance by ARR, this routing policy is not actually looking at that. It's just doing a pure round robin to those territories. This allows you to do this stuff in real time, right? So account gets created, you can put it into a rep's name immediately by leveraging this routing policy. Whereas going back in and looking at the SmartPlan rules and kind of balancing up on the criteria that you've built would allow, is a little bit more asynchronous, but would allow you to actually do the allocation of the accounts based on the rules that you've had in the SmartPlan. This is incumbent, if I was to do it on the rerun rules here, this is incumbent on me running that export job to kind of execute those changes back into Salesforce. So that's kind of why I say it's more asynchronous. It's you can run an ad hoc job at any time. So it's not like you have to wait a week to do these changes, but you could easily make that happen within your Thursday afternoon if you wanted to.
Okay, great.
And the last thing I'll say to that, sorry, is just on the rerun rules here, you also have more control over what moves, what doesn't move. So you can certainly come into the UI, review the changes. You can move accounts around if you wanted to say, okay, well, actually, I want this to belong to like a different territory. And so that is just give you an additional layer of control, whereas the round robin is the round robin.
Right. Okay. All right. The next question is, while a user is being terminated in Salesforce, there are reassignment options. What's the recommended action in Salesforce when planning to use Fullcast to manage terminated employees with automation? This is a big question.
So certainly what is the recommended action in Salesforce when planning to use Fullcast to manage terminated employees with automation? So just go through that. If you're going to use that policy that we discussed, back out and terminate. So this policy is looking for somebody to be essentially inactivated in Salesforce. So you're still going to need to trigger that event at some place within Salesforce. So that's kind of that termination event for us. So if you are wanting to use this automation, there needs to be something that exists within Salesforce that we can key off on to then do the different assignments and target actions. So within this case, though, you could look at a field and say, if you filled out like a terminated date or a date left on the user object in Salesforce, we could look at that instead if you were going to allow them to be active for longer. So those are things that you can do to set this up, but certainly you're still going to need to take action in Salesforce. We're not in this world going to inactivate anybody in Salesforce without we don't do that. So you have to do that piece and then also manage the coverage piece here, or if you have those terminate employee Copilot assignment automation thing here, then you would do it that way. Does that answer the question?
I think so. Yes,
maybe.
I think so. We'll see if
Basically, you're still going to have to do things in Salesforce and you're going to have to do things in Fullcast. You won't have to do it in Fullcast if you use the policy we're looking at, because we can key off of the changes to the user from Salesforce.
All right. Any other questions? I feel like I had a question that's now evaded me. I just have to hold on. Oh, I got another one here maybe. What's the difference between terminating employee in coverage, dating their assignment, or deleting the assignment?
You should never delete the assignment. So the interesting thing about Fullcast is that we have, and I think, well, maybe there's coverage at this level. Perfect. So the point of this coverage tab is to house the whole history of who's covering the territory throughout your fiscal year. And so what that means is I can look at this at a glance and understand that Bob is covering the territory between September 13th and September 27th. And then Kyle is going to pick that up on September 28th and will hopefully close out the year as the person assigned to this all companies 1-1 territory. And so if you delete an assignment, you lose that history, right? You don't know who covered the territory during specific sets of dates. Plus there's impacts to your export job because Fullcast doesn't know. So if Bob, we've been exporting him to Salesforce on the account team and I come in and delete this assignment, then Fullcast doesn't ever know that it existed. And so we don't know to go clean up the account team members in Salesforce. So try to never delete an assignment. The only time I might do that is if I am in planning mode before the fiscal year is live and I accidentally assigned Bob to all companies 1-1 and he's supposed to be assigned a 1-2. And because that's not exporting, there's no real impact. We're not live with the plan. And that would be the only reason I would actually do that. So let's talk about some of the other things here. Terminating the employee in coverage and end dating their assignment. Right now, what I would do is always try to run the terminate employee workflow. This does walk you through the dates that they're leaving and who the coverage is, where they're assigned. So if you've assigned their rep to multiple territories or sales leader to multiple territories, we're going to show you all of those and ask you what to do with that coverage and finding the replacement coverage. The only reason I might switch to end dating an assignment would be the scenario for when you have somebody that goes on extended leave And that might be a case where I would actually come in here and end date the assignment, create a temporary coverage, and then recreate Bob later when they come back. And so that would actually be a structure or a scenario where I would do that. Otherwise, I'm pretty much always trying to terminate the employee from their current role. Good question.
Very good.
All right. Going once.
Oh, I will give a quick plug for my survey that is going to come on right at the end of this webinar. So we've did these couple of sessions on SmartPlan as kind of a test to see if this is a series that we want to keep providing to our customers. So what it would be really helpful if folks like to have these kind of sessions, feel free to give your feedback in that survey so it can make us or give us some data to make informed decisions on as we move forward with these type of events.
Okay. I think we've answered everyone's questions and everyone's a pro at SmartPlan now.
That's right.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining.
Thank you. We'll get things out to you soon.
Cool. See ya.
Bye.